And welcome, Heller Barnes. Ask us anything. And boy, we have a great show today. I'm really excited about our guest. And she has a special name that has
Special
a
name.
middle initial in it, and we'll talk about why she did that. So, Johnny, welcome. Glad you're back, of course. And next week we're in New England. We are dark next week. So, for those of you that are, the great thing is there's a playlist of the last 40 shows we've done available on YouTube. You can watch that too. So, Johnny, how you doing? Tell us about our guest and how you're doing here on this
I'm
wonderful
doing
day.
wonderfully, and I'll tell you about our guest. I want to make one comment at the top, which I'll repeat at the bottom. If you guys are enjoying the Don Baarns, Johnny Heller chit-chat session we're doing here, please put so in the comments. Make your comments. Hitting likes is great, but commenting really helps us get the word out and gets more people seeing what we're doing here. We're bringing. We've been doing this over a year now, I think, or something like that. So we want to carry on. We really enjoy it. I still don't like Don very much, but the show is going pretty well. So we'd like you to go ahead and make comments.
It's
That
like take a
sounds
number.
ridiculous. Make some nice comments about us. And now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Rebecca H. Lee.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
You say
crowd
without
goes,
further ado.
yeah.
So
So
you have
Rebecca
to,
and we went over where we've known each other because we met at one of the APAC get-togethers in one of the years, 2016, 17, 18, one of those
19.
numbers.
I
Huh?
think get there eventually. 19, I think.
I
The
was in
last
19,
one
yeah.
before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, I don't always go to APAC, so I don't always know which year I went. So
Mhm.
and then we worked together, and Joanna and I went out to Seattle, did a workshop. Great. I have to say, not only do I love the narrator community in Seattle, they're really wonderful people, but Seattle's a great town. I remember we I always have an image of Seattle as this hill, and then you go down any one of 18 streets down to the water from the top of the hill where all the that one little angle like this, and at the bottom of that hill, right at the water, is like 300 fresh salmon spots. So you can go to we can have a salmon at one restaurant, then go to the next restaurant,
Oh,
another
yeah.
salmon, and they just pulled it in off the dock, right off. They opened their back door, and the chef
Mm,
threw a hook out there and got a fresh salmon. That's how
that's
it happens.
unlikely, but
That's
there's a
exactly
lot of
what happened.
salmon.
That's exactly how it works. Yeah. So
Uh,
Seattle is a lovely town. We quite like it, and we saw you there, and you were at the Scott Prick Johnny Heller business workshop, and we worked there. So, and now here you are on our show as a guest. We're delighted to have you. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to. Actually, you know what? Tell us about your background, how you got into this crazy world we're all in now.
I've been a performer for my whole life. I did theater in college. I actually was a music major, or I didn't get into the music program at first, so I declared theater as my major. But always been a performer. So I did a theater degree at University of Washington, and then I did a lot of improv after. I've done a lot of different things, so it's kind of been a long journey, and it's kind of like one thing has led to the next, and this is where I am now. But this is actually where I've stayed the longest. So at this point, I've been narrating for about 10 years, and
Oh,
before that, it was kind of like, well, I was a dancer and a choreographer for a few years. I was a um, cruise ship entertainment, host for a few years. But this is the one I've actually been doing the longest, which is
so much to
interesting.
unpack here. What's the
Yeah.
Tell me about your improv experience, and were you in an improv company doing comedy improv for performance pieces, or
Yeah.
improv as a means to an end?
Yeah. Improv for improv's sake. I first did it in college, I did some. And then when I lived in Florida, I studied at SAC Comedy Lab, which is, I think Wayne Brady is one of the founders.
Oh yeah.
And then I moved to LA to do more improv and yoga because I was also teaching yoga at the time. And so I did the groundlings, and then I ended up at IO West. I did a little bit of UCB and some comedy writing at Second City. I did the full program at IO West, and then was on some Herald teams and in various places.
what's a Herald team?
A Herald team is long form improv, and it's kind of like, you do a few scenes in the beginning, and then you do like a big group scene, and then another few scenes, and then a big group scene, and then it kind of all meshes together at the end. You have like a lot of crossover. Um, I'd say it's the snobbiest of improv forms. It's not the one that you want to take like the first time, improv
Yeah.
spectator to. But it it really stretches you because you have to play a bunch of different characters in each of these scenes, and you have to be able to communicate to your team members like, "Okay, I'm doing this character now." So you have to do, if you're establishing a character in the first what's called beat, then in the second beat you're doing a different character, and then in the third beat you might be doing that first character, you might be doing that second character. So you really have to like remember what you did and
So,
communicate that to your teammates so they know which kind of scene that you're doing.
well, so improv's kind of a mystery to most people because they think it's all like if I'm going to do improv, there's nothing to study. I just make it up as I go. There are no rules. There's no structure.
I
Um,
think you can say that about most things, though.
well, it's okay.
Yeah, it's
You can. I used to. So I'm like you. I've done all these things. I taught dance and I taught music to dancers, like how the music works. And the first thing
Mhm,
we always talked about was that music has structure, and
mhm.
that while all the musicians, while it's going on, know where they are in the structure. When I first learned about improv, I've loved Who's Line, and I've just always been a fan of people doing improv and comedy, and to learn about the backstory and find out there's a whole structure to improv, and that's why Johnny and almost everybody else in this business is, hey, go take an improv class, because I'm sure the first thing they do is go, by the way, you don't get to just say anything you want.
oh,
It's
no, it's quite structured. There's all these,
yes and.
when I did improv, I mean, the Viola Spolin games, then since then, you've got Harold, you've got, I mean, I knew Del Close, for God's sakes, a
Wow.
pioneer of improv in,
So, IO was Del Close's theater. I was in the LA branch of it,
yeah,
just for
it yeah, he was,
the listeners.
I knew him later, but it was really weird. He was everything people say. But,
Hmm.
the improv is a wonderful way for a lot of actors to get in touch. For me, and Rebecca, tell me if you feel the same. It's a way to get in touch with what's inside without judgment. It
Yeah.
breaks down all the barriers we as adults have learned to put up and lets that inner child, that innocence, and that immediacy. Hey, we're in a gas station. Okay, we're in a gas station, it just, and it builds on itself. And there's different reasons to do everything.
Mhm.
If the point of the improv workshop or team or whatever is laughs, it's a different kind of improv than if it's to work as your skills as an actor. And they both can be the same, but sometimes they have different you need to know what, for example, if you go to see the Herald, as Rebecca, you need to know the rules. And
Mhm.
if it's competitive improv where teams compete, you need to know the rules of the game like you would in any sport, if you will. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, what's interesting is the rules are what make it easier,
Yeah.
where most people think it would be the opposite, but it's like, someone used this analogy once. They did a study where they had like 30 in a grocery store. They had like 30 different types of jelly, and they offered people a free jelly. Just pick one. You can only pick one. And then they did the same thing, but they had like 3. They only had 3 different types. And more people accepted the free jelly when there were only 3 than when there were 30, because when you have choice overload, you're like, "I don't know what to do. I could do anything." So
Uh,
that's where learning kind of the rules of improv helps. Um, and, like, we've talked about there's the herald that it's and we don't like this they improv teachers don't like the word structure for some reason. They'll use the word form. I don't really know the difference when you break it down. But, in a herald, there are a lot of things you have to really be aware of what's happening and where you are in the show, because it's like a 25-minute show,
yeah.
and you have to try to get it to be 25 minutes. Whereas there's also short form improv where you might have a very strict rule, but you just have like one. You're playing this game where every line has to start with the next letter of the alphabet, for instance. Um, it's interesting
Oh,
how
that's a tough
that
one.
it's not though. It focuses you because you're like, well, there's only so many words. So let me start with finding a word and then I'll just make a sentence out of that. So instead of going, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say, you actually go, "Kangaroos are
Yeah,
great in this situation," you know?
yeah,
So
exactly.
so that's,
And
That's
then the
for the
one where
C's,
everything's
right?
has to be
Kangaroos
everything.
for the C's?
what's
What's
that?
that?
Kangaroo is for C, right? The letter C.
Kangaroo,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
C-A-N.
That's
yeah. And the one where you have to ask questions all the time, you can't have a statement.
That one is pretty hard.
That's
But the
because
reason
eventually
why that
people
one is hard
yeah.
is because I think people just aren't used to just asking questions all the time. Um,
what do you mean?
and when you're well, and when someone asks you a question, your response is to answer it with a statement, but instead you have to answer it with another question. I'm actually really good at that game, I love it.
Yeah,
But,
it's
yeah.
there once you at the New England Narrator Retreat coming up next week, my dear friend Brenda Wazloo, who's a new mommy now, is gonna do an afternoon, improv for audiobooks. I don't know what it's about because some of the attendees are putting on little workshops, so she's doing improv for audiobooks late in the afternoon. That should be I'm kinda curious about that.
Mhm.
Don's doing some kind of, pickleball stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Eh, so tell
Pickleball, I will have you know,
Uh-huh.
started in Bainbridge Island, Washington, which
Yep.
is a ferry away from where I am, and I learned that a few months ago when I went to Bainbridge Island for the first time, and we went to a bookstore, and we found a book on pickleball, and I opened it up. I'm like, "Why is pickleball suddenly popular?" I open it up, it's like, "It started here in Bainbridge Island," so
Yeah, it's I think 40 or 50
there you go.
years old, but only become hyper popular in the last 5 years. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like a lot of
We used to
things.
play
So,
when we were kids. We had a court at my friends' apartments.
Yep.
how long has pickleball been around?
It's been around since the 60s if I remember right. Is that do you know,
Well,
Rebecca?
I wasn't around in the '60s, so
No,
I don't
no,
know.
but what since you were just at the history of it, if I have the backstory right, it was invented by a family in the 1960s, but didn't become. It was regional, and then it got into some curriculums, and basically it started off with being played by seniors primarily and little kids, and then worked its way up. Now it's the big rage at the college age, so whole different thing there. So
Mhm.
so tell us, so how does improv though make you a better narrator?
Uh,
Or
just jumping into different characters is, I think, the main thing. You know, especially if you have these small characters where you're not going to think a lot in advance about, you have 60 characters in a book. There might be 4 or 5 that you're really particular about. I got to get this right. But then you have like the person that has 1 or 2 lines. Just having all that experience of being able to just pull something out and have it be a different character, and just the skills that you use to get better at improv are people watching and listening to people, and
Yes.
all of that stuff is comes into play in narration as well. It's narration I think narration and improv are very close because you don't have to worry about memorizing anything, and so you're just acting, you're just doing I mean, in improv, you're also writing, which is another brain thing. But then you remove that, and then you're just reading. Now you just have to worry about reading and getting the words right. Um, but it's acting in its purest form almost, without
I
having
I
to worry about the memorization.
I think it adds a large number of options or tools to the actor toolbox,
Yeah.
as you said, because all of a sudden, so many people who don't have acting backgrounds or don't take it or don't have the background and jump into this because somebody told them they had a nice voice, don't have all the options that actors have, all the choices to make, all the training. It's fascinating to me, and I'd like to hear your comments on this, Rebecca. How your training, the work you put in improv, in dance, in choreography, in yoga, in anything, the things you've done in your life, how suddenly it opens you up to so many more options and so many more choices. And when people say, "Well, how do you play this?" "Well, I don't know," is a common refrain. You always do know. I think you always know, and I think your background is a helpful one to always know because you've loaded your actor's toolbox with options and opportunities, and you can draw on those because of your background. Would you agree with that?
I would agree, and I'm gonna add to that. I'm gonna yes
Yes.
and. It's not enough though. When I first started in audiobooks, I'll be honest, my first 4 years of audiobooks, I did just indie authors on ACX. I didn't do mm, I I didn't do any coaching, and because I thought I've spent, all my money on my my theater degree. I've spent all this money on improv. I'm kind of done with the training, and that was the wrong choice because most of what you're doing
Excuse me.
in narration is the narration, and you don't there's a lot of ways to go about that, and it's not gonna and then the other thing, the biggest part is instead of being on a stage and projecting to the back of the 99 seat theater, you are now speaking just with this microphone, and you don't have to project, and you shouldn't project.
Right.
You have to learn how to, speak quietly. So those are things that I, failed to realize when I was brand new, because of course I was, you know,
Were you
like, "I'm an
surprised
actor, I've
as
done
you're
all this acting."
were you surprised as you did more and learned more and experienced more, how many different tools you needed or wished you had, and were you surprised by how much work goes into the work?
I was told a lot in the beginning that it would be that way, and
Ah,
I was kind of ready for it. I was already a SAG-AFTRA member,
mhm.
and they told me straight up, "Don't take lowball projects on ACX. You're allowed to, but it's gonna take 8 hours per finished hour." So I was like, "Okay, it's
Yeah.
I'm wor I'm gonna," because we're producing our own. It actually my first audiobook, I produced the whole thing and I engineered it and took way more than 8 hours for the first, finished hour or for per finished hour. What was the question? Sorry.
Well, no, no, I said it would you basically answered it. The idea
Yeah.
that, I guess in plain English, the more you know and the more you're willing to learn and willing to know, that the more, the easier the job can be for you, because there's
Mhm.
so much that goes into I'm always bothered by, and I think all audiobook coaches and all acting coaches in general are, bothered by the idea that people think this is easy. I've never been in a career in my life, ever, when I tell people what I do and they go, "Oh, I bet I can do that." It's like, you don't meet a brain surgeon, you go, Well, I know what the brain is. I have an X-Acto knife. I can do that." I mean, how hard could it possibly Don's a sound technician, so what? You plug in the Scarlett interface, how hard could that be?
Yeah, there's nothing to it.
You're a yoga teacher, so you just lie around on a mat all day barking like a dog, right? So, the idea that people have these idiotic ideas about what the craft is involved, what any job's involved,
The
and
issue is
they
though,
make assumptions that anybody can do it. And I think that you, with your theater degree and your background in improv and your background in all these arts, maybe had an easier road to be successful and to be good at this than others.
Yeah,
That's the
because
point
I
I'm making.
knew how much work goes into being a good performer, and also, even, like, the engineering part, I had a head start on that because I did some music engineering in college. Again, I was a double major, I did music, um, and so even still, audiobook engineering and music engineering are 2 completely different beasts,
Oh, yeah.
and I had to learn that part of it, and then now I let other people do it because it's not my thing.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Uh, so, yeah, and, anything that you do is gonna take a lot of work if you're gonna be good at it, so I don't yeah, people who I think there's just right now, there's a lot of people that are on TikTok or whatever, and they're saying, "Oh, just read in your pajamas in bed," and they're just saying that to get views. They don't know. They've never done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just trying to get views. Don't
well,
believe
Yeah.
everything you hear online.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you also can have a whole lot of books and still not have made any money at it. I mean,
Yeah.
and I could go out and get there are a set of books out there that I did, or they were like an hour and a half long. They were horribly written, and when Lisa and I started, my wife's the theater background, and she does all the good stuff. She's actually trained like you. Okay, I never decided. Oh, but I did a few books when I started off. I did a dozen of them, and I think that the rights holder was, wow, some idiot says he'll do this. We'll take him, and that was me. Because, I mean, I
Yeah.
auditioned for these books on doomsday prepping, okay? And it was just early on.
Mm.
This is 10, 12 years ago that I did a series of books. And it took me more than 10 hours. I already recorded music. I'd worked in recording studios. I had cut master records. How hard can it be? It's one mic. and it seemed like such a trivial thing. And yeah, over 10 hours per finished hour for my first
God.
set of books, because I didn't know what I didn't know, and there's just details. And I still like people that have an engineering background in some level. If they're going to do this, that they're easier, but they don't understand that there are differences between music and this. And it's like any other business. There are
Here's
details
Lisa.
here.
Lisa giving you a little heads up. They
They
sold well.
sold well.
Don't feel
This is the
bad.
funniest thing. There came a series came out on Netflix later, about 2 years after I did it, on doomsday prepping. And since I had done these books that I had they were throwaways for me. I was trying to learn the craft and practice, and they were all royalty share. I never expected to make a dime on it, but I was doing it for the experience in the early days. And yeah, we made tons of money on it. And because a series came out on this topic, and it was just lucky. It wasn't the,
Mhm.
but it taught me a good lesson. If you can ever find something that has a series of books,
Oh, yeah.
this guy eventually bundled them. While individually they sold okay, he came back to us and said, "Could you bundle them?" I go, "Yeah, I have all the original stuff. I'm a little pack rat about all my audio. I have all of it." And I just put them into bundles of 4 books. They were, since they started off, an hour and a half a piece. Now all of a sudden you have a 5 hour, 6 hour thing. And like a couple years afterward, we made a crazy amount of money because this TV show came on, which was not his TV show, but it was on that subject. So the interest went really high. But that's
Yeah.
so
That was also in the early days of ACX, right? So there
correct,
were
correct.
fewer books.
There were fewer
There
books,
were
there were
fewer
fewer
audiobooks in
people,
general.
there was no established paths. The Hellers weren't, I mean, I didn't even know who Johnny Heller was at that time. He was already well established, and I still didn't know who he was. I mean, it was
Those
pretty
were the
much,
dark days of your life,
yeah,
probably. Yeah.
yeah.
Very
It was
sad.
the wild, wild west of the audiobook business back then, and things we got away at that. But here's the funny thing: I have a performance background. I've worked with some amazing world class musicians, and both instructors and peers. And you come into this, and it's like, yes, you have a bunch of things you know about. I'm like you. I know a lot about performing. I don't know the first, but then I get in this, it's like, yeah, but I don't know anything about performing in this area, and in a way that's sustainable, and in a way that's doing a character. Like, I can do an amazing Don Baarns. If you need that character, I'm your guy. If you need me to act like a real person, that's just totally out of my wheelhouse.
Hmm.
And it's a different skill. And
Yep.
as a performer, I know that each of these things require a whole bunch of time and energy and study to do really, really well. So when you were on a cruise ship, what were you doing on the cruise ships? I want to,
Nice segue.
I wanted to segue back to that. Yes, that's very clean the way I
John
did
wants to
that.
go on a cruise. So I worked in 2 different times of my life. I've worked on cruise ships. The first time I worked as a fitness instructor and did also yoga and Pilates and stuff, and that was on Disney. And then I thought that the programming people were having a lot more fun. So a few years later, I came back as an entertainment host
Wait,
on
wait,
Royal
wait. When you
Caribbean.
when you were the yoga and phys ed person on the boat,
Hmm.
so you'd board it with Miami, I suppose, and then you'd how
So
long were
throw
these
it around there.
cruises?
This was 3 and 4 day cruises.
So people who are spending all day at the buffet line think, "Geez, I should grab a yoga or Pilates course." Is that really the thought that goes into it? Since I'm eating so
Uh,
much, is that
it's hard to say. It was such a small percentage of the people who actually ended up in the gym. I mean, if there were 1,000, no, I think there were probably around 2,300. This is a Disney cruise though, so there were a lot of kids. Maybe
yeah, then yeah.
1,800 adults on the ship, and the room that I taught fitness classes in held about 10. So everyone kind of
Oh,
has their different reasons, but our job was more sales and trying to get them to sign up for like to get detox supplements and stuff. And but I would teach 2 classes a day, and then I would also do like booking spa appointments because we were in the spa. So I did
oh,
a
yeah,
lot of
okay.
different stuff. It was
So
fun for a few months, and then I got very bored doing the same thing over and over again.
and then you came back as the entertainment director?
Entertainment, not the director, but, actually cruise director staff was my job title, and I did that after having a lot of more performing experience and teaching dance and doing a bunch of stuff in resorts. And so I came back as a um, cruise director staff for Royal Caribbean. And so that was fun. We got to do, we hosted game shows, we taught dance classes, we did trivia, karaoke, like all the activities that people do on the ship. But we also had to stand at the doors and say, "Welcome aboard, welcome aboard." So, and then we're working a lot because you can work more on ships without getting paid overtime than
Was
you
it
can
fun?
on the it was fun. It was work though. It's always gonna be work. They're always gonna work you as much as they can. And also, like, the jobs where I had the most fun and got to do the most fun stuff, I was just exhausted and I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have. But then there were
Yeah.
also ships where I didn't do a whole lot. Maybe we would do trivia every night and that was about it. But we had like full days off to go sightseeing in Europe. So every
Let's
ship was very different. It also depended on who our boss was. That
yeah.
made a big difference.
Did
Well,
and
go ahead, Don,
I
sorry.
want to ask, did any of that stuff influence your narration career?
Yeah, in a strange way, like, my favorite thing to do was actually because all of the crew members were from different parts of the world, and I didn't go to the bar, but my favorite thing was just to hang out after meals and just talk to people from, other crew members from all over the world and listen to their accents
Oh,
and
yeah.
learn about them, and so they come up in my books all the
So
time.
now, in your book, do you think of that was Joe who I met at in Europe at this cruise ship? I mean, you may not.
Yeah, it's like this Australian guy is the Rockwall guy from Australia. It's not, this fictitious, words on paper. It's an actual person who I can picture in my mind, so
See, I think that's brilliant of you because I think all of us have experiences, not as many people, let's say, work on a cruise ship, but we all have experiences where we meet people from all over the place, or
mm,
we hear people with distinctive sounds, and either we like or dislike them, but then we eliminate them from our memory somehow. And I think that those who study acting are always studying the human condition and everything, and especially the place where I live in Manhattan, where there's so many different voices and dialects and sounds. You can find a myriad in of people and sounds to craft your characters. And like once you know the fellow you chatted with from Australia, when you're Australia, if he's the right guy, it's such a much more honest portrayal of the character
mhm.
because you're actually casting it, which is one of the things I always, I'm big on. Cast your characters from your frame of reference. And your
Yeah.
frame of reference is so much larger now because of the experiences you've had, and it sounds to me that while you were having the experiences, you knew they'd be valuable later for something or another.
I started to film, I was gonna do some YouTube. I had, like I claimed, a domain not a domain, but like a screen name or whatever for YouTube because I was gonna make a YouTube, before I learned how hard video editing was, I was gonna make a YouTube channel and have, like, interviews, and so I interviewed a bunch of crew members, and I would ask them, like, "Can you do" like, for instance, an Australian guy, "Can you do an Irish accent?" And just have them say different things and talk about different things. What is the type of food that people think your country is known for, but what is the actual food that everyone eats there, because this is what's interesting to me is learning about people from different cultures and different countries and hearing their accents. So I wanted to make this as a YouTube channel, and it never happened.
It's
I
a good
just
idea,
couldn't.
though.
It's a great idea. Someone should do it, and actually they have. There have been things since then, but not on cruise ships. So anyone out there
Lisa,
on cruise ships,
Lisa has a cruise ship question for you here.
yeah.
Did you create and implement creative entertainment, or was everything, or people things handed to you and you were not allowed to change it up?
We changed up a lot of stuff. We did a lot of our own things. I invented a game show at one point that I only did once or twice, because, of course, the people above you they have their ideas of what they want. But um, we made our own trivia questions for a lot of it. This was on Royal Caribbean. On Disney, they would do the exact same thing every single time. They were
Oh, yeah.
and I would, because I've also worked for Disney in the parks. So it wouldn't surprise me if they had like people whose job it was to go and make sure that they're doing everything exactly as it was. Um, Whereas on Royal, it was a lot more flexible, and it it was more, I think the idea that if we're having fun, the guests are having fun was more of a thing. It wasn't as much of a thing as it was in some other jobs that I've had, but I mean, our best events were like the '70s party where the cruise director would bring a beach ball and it would just be craziness because the beach ball would sometimes break things, and it's like, so we definitely did a lot. My improv came in very handy on during those contracts for sure.
Do you go on cruise ships now? Do you go cruises for fun?
No way. Funny enough, though, my boyfriend he used to work on cruise ships for a different company, and we
Really?
met, and we actually were on ships around the same time, and we both worked for different companies. He was, with the kids programming, I was with the, like, regular adult and everyone programming. So we had similar jobs, and, but neither of us would ever go on a cruise.
My dear friend Joel Frumkin, as you probably know, has the, what's it, audiobooks at sea or something. There's is and
Yeah.
it's successful. People like it, and he invited Joanna and I to come on his first one, and we just don't want to. Not because of Joel, just I don't wanna go on a cruise ship. I don't like the idea. Joanna has this, very real fear that she doesn't like the idea of being on a boat at sea with no land in sight.
Mm.
That bothers her, and
That would yeah.
for me, it's a certain and sure fear and knowledge that not only are there sharks, but there will be pirates if not sharks.
I've never seen a shark out there. I have seen a dolphin.
They're tricky. They're
I've,
they're
They
sneaky.
hide
Yeah.
and
under the
shark bites
water.
are much more rare than
All
people
it
think
takes
they
is
are.
one.
I have met a guy who has been bit by sharks,
See, I rest my case on my laurels
but he
there.
didn't work on a cruise ship. That was when I worked in resorts.
He probably got thrown off a cruise ship looking for pirates,
No, he was
and a
scuba
shark
diving in
bit
the
him.
early morning out by the resort. What was the other thing? Pirates. Only one I ever saw was Captain Hook, and he was employed to be there. He was
I
told
saw
to
that Tom Hanks movie of Captain Phillips there, and I'm telling you, there's
yeah,
pirates. There's pirates looking for those Disney when you guys have your 70 party and everything's going crazy,
yeah.
that's when the pirates are gonna attack.
You know what? When I worked on Royal Caribbean, I worked on the biggest cruise ship in the world, and they made a joke about it on SNL, and I was so proud. I was like, "That's my ship." And, the joke was it was on the Weekend Update, and they said, like, "The Royal Caribbean has the biggest cruise ship in the world, coming out," and, so hopefully they have guns to ward off the pirates. What? No no guns? Welcome aboard, pirates. But we were fine. We do have a pretty big security team on on those cruise ships, so
So what's coming
So
up
so
in
what are you working sorry, go ahead,
Yeah, go
Don.
ahead, same question.
What are you working on now? What project has you
it's a romance,
Mhm,
so I won't talk about it too much because it's under my pseudonym.
okay.
I just wrapped a sci-fi, a really oh my gosh, this might be my favorite project ever, with, Audiobook Empire. I did a book, about like a 16, 17-year-old 17-year-old, I think, kind of, burgeoning
Yeah,
scientist who programs an AI, that becomes sentient maybe. So
Is it live now?
no, it's I'm waiting for pickups now, so, yeah, that'll be coming out, and I'm very excited about it.
the joy of pickups.
Yeah.
I just got sent some for a book that I thought I was done with. I'm like,
What,
"Oh."
you thought you didn't have any pickups, or you just
No,
couldn't
no,
remember not doing them?
I had forgotten they hadn't sent them yet. I tend to do a
Mm,
thing and then forget about it till then, and then I'll say, "Oh, yeah, I didn't remember that." And then actually, I did think I didn't have any.
mm.
Sometimes I don't, but this time I do.
Yeah, it's funny. They'll send sometimes, you have a gazillion pickups, and then the next week, you have 0 pickups, good job, and I'm like,
Yeah, and it
"That's
never makes any
unlikely."
sense because sometimes you have a zillion on, like, the shortest book you've ever done or even short
Mhm.
stories, and then this big, 600-page volume, you've got, like, 3. I'm like, "It's so weird."
Yeah, and I feel like I wonder if sometimes they ask the author, "Are you okay if they mess up, like, one word that's not important
They
to"
don't ask the author, they fix it. The they don't. They
No?
ask the author
Okay.
if they can give you the job, but not if they can they'll especially positron, they'll correct everything.
Yeah. Maybe
no
it's
matter how right it was.
maybe it's whether or not they used positron is the big difference. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also think it has to do with who on the staff gets it. It's going to
Yeah.
be if it's a. I always think if you had a young cop pull you over because you were going 3 miles over the speed limit, technically, yeah, you're breaking the law. You're going a little too fast. If a highway patrol person here in California, if you're going 75, they're going to look at you like, well, you're normal. I mean,
Mhm.
even though that's 10 over, it's still normal. Around here, people are going about 80, about 80% of the time. So a new cop though might pull someone over, and I just think that you get somebody newer who's doing the proofing, and they want to make sure that they prove to their boss, I can catch
Mm.
everything, and they send in things that don't really make sense, or it was an artistic choice. And I also think that if they know it's me, they're going to go every single thing they can find because they're going to check me different. And Johnny, most of the time, is going to get somebody that goes, oh, if there's a minor change, that was an artistic choice. That's not a error. And I think you just get different levels of people that are doing the proofing at different points.
Yeah.
Is that consistent with what you see?
Tomato, tomato. Yeah, it's like
That
yeah, I
that's a
mean,
little more succinct way to say it.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, because
you saved a lot of time,
there are multiple ways to say some words, and that's and a lot of it is regional differences, and it might be where the proofer's from, if they're from the same place as I am, or if they're from 5 states over, where, "No, we can't say data, we have to say data,"
Oh,
Right,
that's a
right.
huge one. What do
So,
you say?
I say data because that's what they say on all the commercials now.
I say data because I think I always did, but sometimes I find myself saying like you're doing a book like a British person, and so all of a sudden every hard A is soft A, except for the one that needs to be pasta. The pasta they're saying,
Okay.
they mess everything up. Those damn Brits.
No,
Yeah.
here's the thing. First of all, I this is what I learned. I learned this from 2 different things. One is from, I took a class from Nicola, my, friend
Oh
of
yeah,
mine.
Barbara.
No, Nicola, she teaches, she was teaching an RP class,
Uh huh.
and I was asking her because she actually lives in the US, but she's from England, and she says, "Well, maybe, pasta and I'm studying Italian. Pasta, it's not pasta, it's pasta. It's almost like
Pasta.
between
Yeah.
the 2. And then
Yeah.
same with Spanish. It's like, taco, it's taco. It's not like taco, it's not taco. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
As Americans, this is what I learned from a video about talking about Kamala Harris's name. As Americans, we our go-to for foreign words is the "ah,"
Hmm.
and if it's an American word, it's "ah," because most of our American words are "ah," so I guess maybe we think, "Well, it's foreign, it must be 'ah' because it's different than what we do."
As
So,
opposed to looking it up.
as opposed to looking it up or trying to make our mouth do this thing that's not normal. Like if we said, pasta every time hey, do you want to go and have some pasta? It's like, no, don't do that. That sounds weird and presumptuous. Or presumptuous? Is that the word?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
word. Yeah. No,
Um,
presumptuous. Yeah.
presumptuous. So yeah, so we have to make a choice. Otherwise, we're going to sound snooty and or like we're making fun of someone. And so that's how it ends up. And then the British they made a different choice.
Yeah. Well, my mother's
Well, plus
British.
they do the
Yeah.
they have a lot more words with the
Yeah.
father vowel anyway. So I guess
And because I just
they
can't I
they go
can't
the
remember my
opposite.
mom saying pasta or pasta. I know she never said pasta. I don't remember it. But pasta. So I yeah, that's so yeah. It's just odd. All the different languages.
Yeah.
Um, I forgot to do this stuff. How
And
do you do this? My
are you
sister's
heavy
calling.
heavy into accents and tracking them and making sure that you're in character in the. I mean, some people are really trying to be hyper precise and know the difference between North London and South London, or they're doing a kind of
I don't know
generic.
how they do it in England. I honestly that's one where I could tell I can hear the difference, but man, I'm glad that there are narrators over there that can narrate their own books but as far as American regional, like that was part of the fun of working on the cruise ship. When the guests come on board, I try to guess where they're from. And in
Oh,
fact, on my website, I have a demo of accents, and I've scripted it myself, and it's all, and it's the American is the cruise director or the cruise staff, who's me, and is like, "Welcome aboard," and then everyone comes on, they're from different places.
That's brilliant. That's a
So,
brilliant idea.
yeah, that's, do what you know, that's what I know, so, um
It's a very clever way to bring it all in. It reminds yeah, I mean, it reminds me like animation demos and things, but just that's a
mm,
great idea because it doesn't have to be if you've scripted it yourself or something. I know some people have taken a script that exists and just done one line Australian, the next line French, the next and that it's not easy for the listener at all. But if
no.
you're saying, hello, it's like, it's like the improv game 3 through the door, but you can do 15 through the door. So I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and then what
Tell
I
us about
I
your
did
blog.
I also had to reach out to my friends too, like, Australian friends. Would would this make sense? Would you say that? And they, "No, let's tweak it a little bit. You would actually say this instead," because the dialect
Yeah.
is different. They say different words than we say or different phrases. My blog, okay. My blog is, how I s how I refrain from commenting on people's Facebook posts. When there is a heated discussion and I'm like, "Ooh, I wanna say this thing, but nope, I don't wanna go down that rabbit hole." So instead, I'll just think about all this stuff, and then I'll end up writing a blog, and then I can put it out and people can comment if they want.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm not in the heat of the moment saying things and then later thinking about it, What I have found out is that most of my blog posts, I don't pick one side, which people tend to do on Facebook. They go, "Oh, it's either this way or this way. I'm on team this, I'm on team this."
yeah,
When I blog about something, I might be on one side, but then I'll research it and then I'll find out, "Oh, there's a lot more nuance than I thought before." And I'm pretty meticulous about I don't want to get things wrong. So my blog posts end up being more like research paper than opinions, although I'm sure there is some things that because I do them every week, except for last week, I did miss my
How
deadline.
consistent how often have you been doing them? For a year or more?
Not consistently for a year, but I did get a blog partner after let's see, it was after, uh, last APAC maybe? I think,
Mm,
I remember, just talking to some people, and I found a blog partner, and then I found a local coffee buddy on the same day, and it was like, "Wow, this is great." And so I my blog partner and I, she's also a narrator, um, we meet usually every week, and we either blog during that time, and then we'll read each other's. That's usually what happens. And
yeah,
so sometimes I'll blog in the morning, and then I'll kind of finish it up on the day that we meet.
yeah. I had committed to doing mine once every month, and I'm not even able to do that. I
It's
keep
hard,
forgetting.
having a partner to do it with, like, who's on Zoom with you is the
Yeah,
only way that I can do it consistently.
And I
that's a
did
good
put
idea.
the that's that the correct link to your blog?
Where
I put it up
It's,
on the
underneath
screen, bexvoice.com/bex hyphen blog.
there's a window that's popped up, hang on. bexvoice.com/bexblog. That is it, yeah.
Okay.
great. Hey,
And
any questions in the audience for, Rebecca or Don or myself as we go through this here? One of the things we keep saying, the name of the show is Ask Us Anything, and we always forget to, let them ask us anything or to answer them because we have
well,
such a good time
Larry,
chatting.
Larry, back in our earlier discussion, we were talking about people who just try their hand at acting. By the way, I live here. I'm 30 minutes from Hollywood, and uh, and one of the things people are always like, "Ah, Californians are flakes." And one of the things that I've come to the conclusion after living here 40 years is yes, that is correct. But
She's gonna
also, the other thing that happens is that people come to California or come to Hollywood and then to try their hand at acting. And then what happens is a year or two later, they're gone. Because if they just came in and they didn't do the training, they may get one thing or they may get, but to have a sustained living is not, is the same as audiobooks. People can get a few books. It's having a sustained business that keeps going where you have publishers and authors wanting you to do more and more for them that is the difficult part of the business. It's not getting your first book, although that is difficult too. It's a sustained situation that is the most difficult, and that almost always goes to the people that have something that they're doing to improve their game constantly, and often that's coaching, going to sessions, hanging out with the right people, building up their accountability partners, and doing a bunch of other things that are unrelated to just, quote, narrating. Close from your point of view, Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard it's hard to make a career in as a freelancer performer, it's very hard. Um, or as a free even as a performer that has to get a bunch of different jobs. The first, you know, 10 years after college, I was willing to travel and take jobs that were contract where I would like, I'd work for a cruise line for a long time, or I got a W-2 job, working at Disney theme parks for 3 or 4 years. Um, those are great, but they don't exist in the part of the world where I wanna live in, and then even in I went to LA and I didn't really wanna do film acting, but even when I was there, I was trying to work as a background actor just because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And even just background acting, because it's so competitive,
Right.
you are spending as much time, on the phone trying to get gigs as you are doing the actual work.
Yeah.
And that's the same in audiobook narration. It's your part of your job is, we don't use agents because agents won't make enough money off of us unless we're already celebrities. So we're trying to get work all the time, and that's part of the job. So you have to be willing to do that part of the job and know that you're always going to be doing that part of the job, at least to some extent. It's
Oh,
good if you can make it fun in some way,
Yeah.
which I try to do.
You have to be willing also to, and understand it's constantly an audition process.
Hmm.
I mean, I would guess that I probably get, "Here's a book for you, Johnny," more often than someone who's brand new, but I still audition all the time and get turned down all the time. I don't bat 1,000, no one does, and I think it's important to understand that this is an ongoing part of the job is seeking the jobs.
Hmm.
I mean, if you get hired to be in a show, a Broadway show, well, then you're gonna be on that show as long as it runs on Broadway unless you wanna leave. So you're working steadily,
Or
and
if
I
you get fired.
guarantee once Huh?
Or if you get fired.
Yeah, if you so but basically that's your job for a while. Then people try and find other things, but if you're an audiobook performer, actor, your job lasts as long as it takes to do that book,
yeah.
Hmm.
and unless it is a royalty share that makes you money, like Don's Doomsday Pickleball series, um, then and you're not gonna make I mean, I still make some money off ACX, but not a lot, certainly not enough to live on,
Right.
but I have other friends who do make enough to live on and pay their mortgages and do things. They made the right choice in the books, but this acting in general, it's constant, and that's why I've always thought, and tell me what you think of this, that one of the measures of success for the audiobook performer is to be hired again by the same author, if it's independent, or the same publishing company, if it's bigger.
And
I view that as a real bar of success, a real sign that you're succeeding.
and
Hmm.
I'll add one yes and that it would also be that those people are willing to pay you fair wages. Like if I take a royalty share book and then they ask me to do the next 50 of them for royalty share that didn't make any money,
No.
then that I don't consider success, but I would have a string of them wanting me to work with them again. It's when
Alright,
you
that's
have
fair enough.
books that are paying or both publishers or royalty share, where the royalty share paid out and you thought that was a good deal. Cool, I'm going to do their next one because I like the book. They're working it. They're doing their part, and the authors have such a huge influence. If you're taking things on ACX and that author is not building their own uh, tribe of people that like their work and they're expanding their work, then as a narrator, you have almost no chance with that kind of author who isn't doing their part to promote it. If they think we're going to promote their stuff, um, yeah, good luck. So,
So that's the Barnes corollary to
yeah,
the
yeah,
acting success story.
yeah. Well, you just have to
Yeah.
be making money at it as well. And what
Yeah, yeah,
Johnny's
you
saying
can't
is,
if it's free, if it's a, "Hey, kids, I've got a barn, let's put on a show."
yeah,
If there's no money there, then I mean,
right,
it may be a fun day, but you can't, you gotta eat.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, Rebecca,
Yeah.
where do you see this thing going? Where are you? What are your? Where do you see your? What is the next thing you're looking forward to? What are you working on?
Um, I've, taken a directing class from, oh my gosh, the nomad narrator, and her name is slipping me right now. Um, And I have been working on directing. I'm an APA mentor, and I taught an audiobook production class for a few years. And what I've learned is that I like to finish projects. Um, Teaching beginners is great for some people, but then they go away, and I don't get closure. And it's also kind of teaching the same thing over and over again. Whereas directing a project is going to be different every time. You know, just like the reason why I like narrating is because the book is going to be different every time. Even if it's a series, there's new characters and everything. So I have been doing kind of like a self internship, I guess, of directing. I've been working with people on like the first chapter or the first hour of their book. I've been doing one a month for the last 5 months. And because I don't feel like I feel like I should have some experience before I ask people to pay me, to do it. So right now, I'm kind of finishing that up, and I'm gonna be doing, like a pay what you can situation, the same type of deal. But I really like directing a lot. It's a nice change of pace, and it gives me an opportunity to work on more projects, but I get to fidget more. I don't have to be in my booth, you know, trying not to hit my microphone, because I can just have it on mute and unmute whenever I need to tell somebody something. So that's kind of the next thing. But of course, I'm still going to do audiobook narration because I'm always a performer. I've never been able to not be a performer, and I love it.
That's really
I
cool.
think, yeah,
Uh,
direction is great. A lot of my friends do that. It's a great way to. It's also, I think, and I may be wrong, but in my understanding, because I've been asked to do it a number of times, that it pays a little less than doing the performance in the book, but it's a great job, and it's I think it's a great way to learn more too, and learn how to work with other actors.
Hmm.
Because one of the things that all actors think is, "No, I would do it this way, do it this way," and yet you watch someone else work who brings it and tells the story, and it's complete, and think, "Wow, that's so interesting. I've learned a new way to do something." That's why I really like working with fellow actors, coaching them, and just being with them because you learn things.
Hmm.
There's no way to know at any given situation what you might learn in that situation.
Yeah, and you learn. Not that this has happened with directing people, but I know this from other things where I've been kind of, on the other side of it. You learn what frustrates the people who hire you, so that you learn not to do those things. So, for instance, you know, like if I'm in charge of a project and I'm, like, coordinating everything, then I know that this person's responsibility is to have a certain amount of prep done. If they show up and they haven't done that prep, it's going to mess everything up. And so with directing, it would be the same thing. If I have to, you know, I mean, I always do my prep anyway because I like doing prep. But for instance, if there's a thing that I learn from directing someone else, like, oh, they didn't do that thing and it messed the whole situation up, because as a director, you're not just working with the narrator, you're working with the whole production team and everyone. um, this is how it affects the other people, and it's my job to kind of make sure that everything runs smoothly. So that's going to help me when I do my next directed session with Penguin or whoever. I'm going to be more cognizant of those type of things.
I wanted to say something earlier. I forgot to bring it up. We were talking about proofing and getting everything right and how many retakes you have and stuff. One lesson, I just want to throw this out in a general sense. Um, the people who proof for ABCD company work for them all the time. That's their proofing team, their editing team. So it's a very typical of audiobook actors to berate, negate, slam the proofers. Say, "Oh, I mean, I did that. That was right. That wasn't," and give them some crap, which is fine. And he lets some steam out and stuff. But remember, um, those proofers work regularly with the people who hire you, and they are
Mm,
their friends for the most part. So there has to be some. What I tend to do on my the thing is when I get retakes and I don't agree, look, I'll go, because you're doing the thing. So instead of I'll say right on the retake, here it is. Here's number 3. "Oh, come on, that was perfect. What's the matter with you?" "Oh, geez." And I'll do it anyway, but I'll put my personality in
mm.
so I'm not really, it gives them a laugh and also lets them know, or I'll say, I have to disagree with this one because the street in question I lived on, that's how we say it. And maybe they don't know that because and that's fine. It's just important, just a lesson. You need to know because you frequently don't know. You need to assume that the people involved with a given project are working together and they're collaborators.
Mhm.
And the one they don't know that well is you. Even though you're the talent, you're the name on the book, this little team that put it together is a team, and you have to respect their relationships too. It doesn't mean they get it right all the time, but how you approach that. And maybe in your experience, this has come up too, because yeah, not every proofing thing is right. And when the book is done, if you took a pause or said a word in a way that an Australian would say it versus someone from Vienna, that's your choice. And I think it's important when the proof comes, say, I made that choice because just explain it. And I am in favor of explaining it right on the proofing retake a voice that you're sending them because it's right there. Because no, the reason I did, and then I do it their way anyway, so they have it.
Yeah.
I give them what they want, but I tell them why I did what I wanted.
So,
Mhm.
Rebecca, I want to ask you, do you push back sometimes on the proofing stuff that comes back to you? I mean, I see Johnny gives them what they ask for and he pushes back nicely with some humor. How do you approach it?
I only have once, and it was and I had a video of the guy saying his name, and they said, "Oh, no, it's said this way. Here's the Forvo," whatever.
Oh,
And they said, "Oh, next time send that to us in advance." And I'm like, "You know what? Though that's true though. If I'm looking these things up, I might as well send it to them." So now it's kind of my practice. And ever since I started doing that, that same company has been booking me like crazy. So
yeah.
But now they
again,
know
they
you're
do all
doing
talk
your
to each other
homework,
probably.
that you're
Yeah,
doing, and
exactly.
yeah, and so at some point they start going, I trust Rebecca because she does her homework and
Mhm.
we don't need to micromanage her as much.
Yeah. Emily Pike Stewart was the name I couldn't remember. She's, great, if she ever does another directing class, if anyone future aspiring audiobook directors wanna take it, she's great. So, anyway, just wanted to say her name because I forgot it earlier.
Cool.
But yeah, no, along those lines, when I do get, like, a lot of pickups or I get, my first thought might be, "Oh, this darn proofer, I don't like them." My second thought is, "I wonder if they freelance because 'cause I'd like to hire them because they did a really thorough job."
If they're right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, if they're and they usually are,
Okay.
because I send them my research first, and then they know, not to tell me
Hopefully.
Well,
I'm wrong if I actually heard the guy say his name on video.
So,
yeah, a lot of times, I mean, if you find could you a lot of times they interview somebody and they never say their name, which is really
It's so
irritating. You gotta watch
frustrating.
35 videos, somebody say his
Yeah.
name, but when the person whose name it is says it, that's usually pretty good.
Mhm.
That works.
Yeah, they
I
usually
mean,
do a pretty good job saying their own
yeah,
name.
they usually a pretty good job with their own name.
If someone finds Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot saying their own name, I'd like to know because I guess she never corrects people, so
Oh, see, yeah, I have a buddy who doesn't do that, and I'm like, "Wait, your last name is it this or that?" He goes, "Either's fine." "No, it
yeah.
isn't. Is it Baarns or Barnes?" It's one of them is wrong.
Well, also though, I mean, I understand that point of view. If your name is something that is not in the oral posture of the person who's saying it, like, I'm not gonna correct someone from Japan if they say Rebecca, I lived in Japan, like, that's how they would say my name. I'm not gonna say, "No, it's Rebecca," because
If they
that's
ask you, though, you would.
they have a band named Rebecca in Japan, and that it's pronounced the Japanese way.
Hmm,
So, yeah, I guess if they say, "How do you say your name properly?" I would say Rebecca,
yeah.
but if they're I'm not gonna correct them, I'm not gonna say, "No, your oral posture is incorrect
Yeah,
on this
you
pronunciation
should,
of my
though.
name."
So see what that does for your
Uh,
friendship quotient. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I've never heard anybody, I love the way you put that, your oral posture, which
Mhm,
means it's because everybody carries themselves differently physically. Some people
mhm.
are a little hunched over, some people carry themselves very formally. That's an interesting point of view that I had never thought of, that your name pronunciation,
Mm.
their oral posture in Japan would be one way, and it'd be totally different here in Southern California, and you're okay with both of them. But it's more interesting that you're conscious of them. See, people like me are not.
Yeah, well, and even I mean, even if it's more of just an accent thing, like, we can say Harry Potter. We can say that. It's not weird on our vocal thing. But if we went around saying, "Oh, did you see the new Harry Potter?" Like, people would look at us like we had 2
Yeah,
heads
yeah.
because we don't say it that way in
What's
this
your
country.
problem? Yeah, we
I mean, I
well,
I would say it that way because I'm silly like that, and I like to, I like to use foreign phrases all the time, but most people don't.
yeah. Well, listen here, Rebecca, it's been great. It's been great
That's
having
what they
you
call
on.
me in New Zealand. Rebecca.
Hey, Rebecca. Yeah. There's a lot of television programs on, like, from New Zealand, like BritBox and Acorn that Joanna and I get, so we see all the Australian and New Zealand things, and it's a wonderful way to get the accents down.
I like, that, paranormal show. What is it? Wellington Paranormal. That's my favorite
Yeah,
New Zealand
I
show.
watch, oh, what's it called? Detective Mike Shepard. Detective Mike Shepard of,
Detective Mike
I can't think
Shipid?
of the name of the show now, but it's one of it's Detective Mike Shepard. It's really
Nice.
tight. So, but anyway, anyway, this has been a great time. I'm so glad you were able to join us. It's been wonderful. Do you have anything you wanna plug before we, time for commercials?
I do.
Read my blog.
Read,
And
okay, the blog.
In
Okay,
the
there it
comments.
is.
And I did put I have your website address, URL right on the screen for everybody, so you can grab it, go to that, and check it out.
And
And the
as we
blog's right there. It's excellent.
And I
and as a
record them
reminder to all
too
of you, please
in
do
audio.
share this with your friends. Do comment. Again, next week, we will not be on. Don and I will both be at the New England Narrator Retreat, which will happen again next October, so think about it.
Yep.
The only thing coming up, 2 things coming up is, probably gonna do a Splendiferous workshop in March here in New York City. I might do some, road trips with Sean Pratt and Paul Rubin between now and then, and we've got, Joanna and I are planning a workcation in Santa Fe in May. But I'll just follow me. If you guys, I have the Johnny Heller Workshop alumni group. You can ask to join that, fill out the questions, or just follow me on Facebook. I try not to go anywhere else because I'm fed up with all social media. And Don, you have a commercial for us.
I do. I do. I just put up there's a URL. There's a flash sale going on this week. And what happened is we bundled Johnny's audiobook secrets with winning auditions and mastering conversational reads. 3 webinars we've done. It's really about 9 hours worth of stuff, but it's 8.7 or something like that. So I just put over 8 hours. But we have it on sale this week. So check that out. The URL's on the screen. I think you'll be impressed. Johnny was brilliant during that webinar. He's usually not brilliant, but that day he was just
Yeah,
totally right on.
I had a moment.
And then, and of course, we are dark next week because I'm coaching at the New England Narrators Retreat. Johnny, I think, well, you're doing something there too, aren't you? I think
I'll
you are.
be there.
Yeah, he'll be there because he's been doing this and running this. One of the most successful, longest running retreats every year. Got to check that out if you haven't been there yet. It's always a joy. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. And as always, we look forward to seeing you on the wires. Have a great
And thanks,
day.
Rebecca.
Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.